Hey Professor Ezeka, this is Nelson Daresh and I am creating this video as instructed because I'm going to be missing class on Monday let me pull it up here, Monday the 19th because I'll be in Seattle to see my grandfather as he is passing away. So you instruct me to make this video to talk about my five things I learned about my interview that I had with Steve King, who was my interviewee for the quality interview. So I have this document written out here, and I'm just going to go ahead and read it to you and talk a little bit about it. So, sorry, that's my phone. Let me turn that off for you. So the five takeaways from my quality interview. Obviously, you can see here that I have the takeaways bolded out here as headers or headings, and then I have the paragraphs that I'll read off to you that explains what these headings mean. So the first one is preparation. I said the most obvious issue with my interview was that I was not prepared. This is because I did not find the interviewee until a week before the assignment was due. I got lucky to have found Steve King. His daughter, my interviewee's daughter, actually lives a few houses down from me, and because of that, it was very easy for me to go and talk to him and set something up, introduce myself, that kind of thing. However, I did not prepare questions. We planned a date, and I did not have the questions ready by that date, so we had to postpone our interview a few times, actually, before I had questions ready. So I thought I was ready when I wrote out my questions finally, and then I learned that I did not have enough questions to provide enough content for my paper, which is the next one. So my essay was not very complete. I'm sure you noticed that. I think that if I would have had at least 10 more questions, the paper would have been much better. It would have looked much better, and I could have probably made it more interesting, been able to connect my interviewee's answers with the course content. If I would have just spent a few more hours, 1 or 2 more hours preparing more questions, I think I would have had a much easier time writing the paper. I felt like I had to do a lot of fluffing just to meet the word and page count. However, Steve King didn't seem to really relate to any of the questions, and I'll talk about a little bit more about that later. But I know more questions would have helped me have more content, but he didn't really understand any of the course content as it was. He understood it, but he had never heard about it before, and he doesn't apply it in his own work. So I found that pretty interesting. So yeah, although questions would have helped me make more content, the content would have been relatively the same as the questions I had already made for him. Because yeah, it says here, however, Steve did not seem to relate to the course content, and his ideal work environment is not as professional as I thought the course might suggest it would be. And the way he explained it in the interview was that, well, he gave me an example of he works at this place called Kangaroo Packaging. They make kids toys packaging, and he said that they had a new hire there who just got out of school, and he's trying to apply all his coursework to his design, and he's really frantic and he's always worrying. And Steve, he uses an example. I won't, if you want to hear the example again, go to the interview for exact wording, but he basically said he needs to take a chill pill and just have fun with it. Design is not something, in his opinion, that's all about organization and coursework. It's more about having fun and being creative, which I can kind of agree with to an extent. So speaking of professionalism, our interview wasn't professional at all. I tried calling Steve multiple times on different occasions. Basically, the way our interview worked out is he says, you can call me at these times for the interview. This won't be available. I called him on some of those times and he didn't pick up, and we had to reschedule for other times he'd be available. When I finally got a hold of him, he had just been getting home with his wife, kicking off his boots kind of thing, putting his feet up. I could even hear his wife in the back of the interview too. He was asking her questions about some of the questions I was asking him. So because the interview wasn't at a sit-down desk, one-on-one kind of thing, it was over the phone. He was at home, I was at home, we were both relaxed. The interview didn't seem as professional as I would have preferred it to be. It was hard to take it as serious. Sorry, that was a notification from a program I have. Let me go ahead and turn that off. So I got a hold of him. Yeah, he's sitting with his wife. It just felt too casual, and his answers did really reflect that. Like I said before, his answers didn't really breathe an air of professionalism in his work. The next part is connections, right? You can see that here. And this basically says this means that before I interviewed Steve King, he told me that I could find his email and phone number on his website, which to me was a hint. He could have just given me his phone number, but that was a hint to me that he wanted me to look through his website and get to know a little bit about him before I interviewed him, which only makes sense. And I did. I skimmed through it. I skimmed through the website, but his website is poorly laid out. It has over 7 different navigation options, and in our website design classes, we learn that 7 is kind of the maximum number before navigation starts to become a little tedious. And a lot of the pages seemed redundant to me, and it didn't seem well organized. So it was hard for me to skim through the content, and I started not to really care about it. But I did notice some pointers that he said, like when he did the U-Haul designs, how he hid characters into the U-Haul trucks. I did see that, and he mentioned that in the interview. Luckily, he mentioned that part and nothing else, because I actually remembered that part. I got lucky about that. Also, I feel like if I would have taken more time to look through his website and get to know more about him, and if I would have included some of that content in my interview, it would have shown that I was really passionate about this interview, about meeting him, and about getting a connection in the field. And maybe I could have used Steve King, not used him in a bad way, but maybe have had that connection going forward for my professional career. And then, speaking of my professional career, Steve King, so the previous 4 categories made it seem like the interview was all poor, which it really wasn't. I feel like the interview turned out very well. Maybe the content was not enough. There wasn't enough content, but the end result of the interview meant a lot to me. And this is because I decided to come into the graphic design field because I took 4 classes in high school based off graphic design, and I really, really enjoyed them, and I wanted to do that as a future career. I had fun making designs, fun making the art. I had fun even learning about how even the human eye works, how it follows a page, what colors it looks at first, that kind of thing. And when I came to ASU and GIT, it started becoming more about the coursework, right? It was way too professional, and it seemed that they did teach you a lot about creativity, but I feel like design kind of lost the fun, right? It was all about a grade rather than having fun with it. And I started to care less and less about it. And especially taking, of course, no offense, TMC classes, right? TMC classes teaches you about the business side of design, and it does apply. It does apply to design businesses, even though TMC isn't directly a design class. The business side was something I just had never really connected with before. And it kind of deterred me a little bit. I won't lie, it did deter me. But after having this interview with Steve King, he reassured me that this wasn't such a big deal, right? The design was more about having fun, being creative, learning about the culture of the design. For example, when he designed the U-Haul trucks, the ones and on all the trucks, every design you see on a U-Haul truck, he designed, right? He's not the one that did all that. What he had to do was he had to research the cultures of the states that he was designing for. Like if you see some of the Arizonan ones, you see rattlesnakes, right? That kind of thing. He looked for these kind of symbolism for his designs that would apply to the state that he was designing for. That kind of stuff is what I find interesting, and that to me, that's having fun with it rather than applying a bunch of business ideologies and that kind of thing to the course, or applying coursework to it. So it really inspired me to continue on with this career and finish school, and I would say maybe the interview didn't have the most content, but to me the content was very important for me to hear, and I think it's really going to help me out in the future. Anyways, thank you, Professor Ezeka. I will see you in 2 weeks when I return from Washington. Hope you guys have a great day. Have a good one.